Howdy, howdy, section 2-6. This is called the coordinate system. And so in this chapter, or this section, we've got several vocabulary to remember here. First one is, obviously, guys, right in the middle is the point 0, 0, which is known as the origin. All right, and then we also have the x and y axis. The y-axis is the one that's going up and down. We say the y is the rise, so that's the one that goes up and down, and then the x makes a cross, so it goes across. All right, so that's y-axis and the x-axis. And on the next page, on page 112, we're asking for the ordered pair that names each point. And we've learned this in a previous section, but all points have two numbers. First number is the x value, which means how far you go left or right, the across, and then the y is the second number. That's how far you go up or down. Your y is your rise. Your y's are the rise. So point A, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start at 0, 0, the origin. We're going to go right or left. Well, in this case, we go left 1, 2, 3. So I know that the first number in the point is -3, and then we're going to go up 1, 2, and that's +2 when you go up. So point A is -3, 2, and then B, again, we start it back at the origin. We go right or left first. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. So in my x values, 4 is my first number, and then I go down 1, 2. So since I went down, that second number is -2. So that's how we should be graphing each of these points. And let's keep going here on page 112. There's another term here called quadrants. And you can see the diagram there that tells you the quadrants. So quadrant number 1 with the I, any point in here would be considered a positive, positive number. In quadrant 2, now this is a little bit different. That would be where we would start going left, so that would be negative, and then the second number you're going up, so that would be positive. Quadrant 3, we would be going left first, so the first number would be negative, and then you'd be going down, so the second number would also be negative. And then quadrant 4, you would start by going to the right, which makes it positive, and then you'd be going down, which makes the second part negative. All right. So that's just the quadrants. And one of the things I want you to recognize here is quadrant 1 is the first one, and then it goes to 2, and then it goes to 3, and then it goes to 4. As you can see, it makes the shape of a C. If it's hard to remember the order and which ones everyone goes, we'll start in the top right corner and then just go in a C. That'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. And another part just to add about where our axes are, the x and y axis. We've got our origin here in the middle. Anytime I go over here and I'm on the x-axis, my point would be a positive, 0. All right. If I went to the left and stayed on the x-axis, my point would be negative, 0. And if I were to go up on the y-axis and just stay there, my first number would be 0 because I went left or right 0. I didn't move left or right. And then I went up, so my second number would be positive. And then similarly on the way down, I would first go left or right 0, all right, because I stayed right at the origin, and then I went down, so my second number would be, the y value would be negative, all right? So keep that in mind. It gets a little bit confusing, but as long as you know to go left, right, and then up and down, this should be a lot easier. All right, now bottom example 2 says graph and label each point on a coordinate plane. Name the quadrant in which each point lies. Part A says point E is at 2, 4. So starting in the middle, go 1, 2, and then go up 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so that point is going to be E, 2, 4. Next point is F, -3, -2. So I'm going to go left to right first. -3, 1, 2, 3, and then down 2. Now, when you're graphing this, you're not going to put those points that I'm putting, all these little ones, but you will put the big point E and the big point F on there. I'm just putting dots so you can see where I'm moving my mouse pen. And point G is 4, 0, so first number is always left to right. Start at the origin, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. Second number is 0, so I don't move at all. That is point G. So now that it's graphed, we're going to also do the quadrant. All right, so obviously point E, you would write that that is in quadrant number 1, or quadrant I. Point F is clearly in not quadrant 2, but quadrant 3. Alright, so you would write that down for that one. And then point G is not in any of the quadrant. It's not in 1 and it's not in 4. You would write that it is not in any of those. It is on the x-axis. Alright, it's a little bit hard to write there, but x-axis. There you go. In example 3, page 113, it says the sum of two numbers is 5. All right, so that's why I wrote x plus y equals 5. Well, because we're going to be adding two numbers. We're summing two numbers to be equal to 5. And it says if x represents the first number and y represents the second number, make a table of possible values for x and y. Well, this other thing that I have wrote here is the table. All right, we're going to find numbers x and y that we can add together and equal 5. And then it says to graph the ordered pairs and describe the graph. So they show it to you in the book, guys. I'm just going to recreate something on my iPad that's everything that I can write that wouldn't look weird. So I've got x and y. Now they've wrote down a few numbers, but I want to make sure we understand that there's a few more. X could be 5, y is 0. That could be a point. X is 4, y is 1. You don't see that one on there either. 3 and 2. 2 and 3. Now this is where it starts on your, when you look in the book, 1, 4, 0, 5, and then so on and so forth. And actually what continues to happen as you move further down is this has a -1, 6. So you can actually start into the negatives here. All right, adding these together, you just learned this through the chapter that when you take -3 and you add 8, you still get +5. So there's a lot more numbers that would end up working here when you add them together. And then the other part is just to make them graph the ordered pairs and describe the graph. So if I were to graph, now I wrote down a lot of points. I just wanted you to see all the different numbers that could add together and equal 5. You know, you're going to graph these points. First one I have is 5, 0. So that goes there. And then I've got 4, 1 is there. And then I've got 3, 2. And I've got 2, 3. And I've got 1, 4. I have 0, 5. All right, and then you can see on the graph that they have a couple more to the left, but that's a bunch of the points. And what I want you to see here is if you were to graph a line like this, what you would end up having, it would be in a straight line. So you describe the graph, straight line heading downward. You might even remember from last chapter that this is called a negative correlation. As one number is going up, the other number is coming down. That's a negative correlation. It's not really part of this chapter. They're not going to ask you that, but it is a way to describe the graph. All right. Hey, thanks for paying attention, guys. Best of luck. This is the end of chapter 2.